I never thought my life would be the kind of story whispered about at family gatherings. You always think betrayal happens to someone else, some stranger in a movie or a podcast, but never you. Never in your home. Never with the two people you trusted most. My cousin Layla and I grew up more like sisters. We shared clothes, secrets, dreams. She practically lived at our house during our teenage years. When I got married to Aaron, she stood beside me in a dusty pink bridesmaid dress, teary-eyed, saying how happy she was for me. Aaron and I had a solid relationship, or so I thought. We weren't perfect, but we laughed together, fought fair, and had what I believed was a deep emotional connection. Layla was always around, and I thought nothing of it. She and Aaron got along, joked around, even shared inside jokes. I used to think, how lucky am I, to have a husband and cousin who love each other like family. But slowly, the lines blurred. I started noticing things. Aaron would light up when Layla entered the room in ways I hadn't seen in years. She'd show up unannounced more often, linger longer, and once, I caught a fleeting look between them and unspoken something I couldn't quite place. I told myself I was being paranoid. Until I wasn't. One night, Aaron fell asleep with his phone unlocked beside him. I wasn't proud of it, but curiosity or maybe intuition got the better of me. What I found shattered me. Their messages weren't overtly sexual, but they were intimate in a way that made my stomach churn. They called each other soul mirrors. They spoke of feelings seen in each other. Emotional cheating, if not physical. Yet, as I read further, the messages grew more charged. There was mention of a night they shouldn't have let happen, and I knew. It wasn't just emotional anymore. When I confronted Aaron, he didn't deny it. He broke down, sobbing. Said he never meant for it to happen. Said it just did. Layla, when cornered, cried too. Told me she didn't plan to fall in love with him. Claimed she hated herself for it. But neither of them stopped. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal, it was realizing I had to grieve two people at once. The man I built a life with. The cousin who knew me better than anyone. They tried to continue their relationship after I walked away. It didn't last. Apparently, guilt is a terrible glue for love. But that didn't bring me peace. What gave me peace was time. And therapy. And learning to rebuild myself without needing to be anyone's wife or cousin. You never expect danger to come wearing a familiar face. That's the thing about emotional attachment, it doesn't always begin with obvious boundaries being crossed. Sometimes it begins with comfort. With safety. With laughter over shared memories. That's how it was with Layla and Aaron. Layla and I were more than cousins. We grew up like sisters. She knew everything about me, my first crush, my teenage heartbreaks, even the things I was too ashamed to admit to anyone else. So, when Aaron came into my life and we started getting serious, it felt natural that they would get along. She had always been part of my world. Why wouldn't I want the two most important people in my life to know and love each other? At first, it was innocent. Or maybe it just looked innocent because I wanted it to be. They were friendly, playful. They'd tease each other in ways that made me laugh, and I'd think, wow, look at my life. Look how well my people get along. And I clung to that image for a long time because who wants to believe something sinister is growing underneath something so warm? But emotional connections, when they start crossing lines, don't always announce themselves. They build slowly, quietly, like water wearing down stone. It was in the small things. Aaron started bringing up things Layla said more often than usual. Layla was saying this the other day, or you know what Layla thinks about that? At first, I found it sweet. Thought he was just valuing her opinion. But over time, I noticed he quoted her more than he quoted me. Like her thoughts carried more weight. Like her words stayed with him longer. Then it was the way he laughed at her jokes. A kind of laughter that lingered. The way his eyes stayed on her just a second too long when she walked into a room. The casual touches that weren't sexual but somehow too familiar. A hand on the back that slid a little too slow. A hug that lingered a little too long. I would catch these moments, and still I doubted myself. I questioned my own instincts. You're being dramatic. You're being jealous. You should be happy they get along. But something in me was whispering, number. This isn't normal. This is something else. There was one day I remember it so clearly. We were all watching a movie together. Aaron had fallen asleep on the couch. Layla and I were talking about something silly from our childhood, and she made a joke that wasn't even that funny. But Aaron, half asleep, smiled. Like he was still listening. Like her voice reached him even in sleep. That smile, it wrecked me. And still, I didn't say anything. Because how do you accuse your cousin, your sister, of having feelings for your husband when nothing physical has happened? When there's no affair to point to, no lipstick on a collar, no sneaky texts at 2 a.m. But I felt it. I felt that something was shifting. That their bond had gone from friendly to emotionally intimate. It was no longer about them getting along for my sake, it was about them finding pieces of themselves in each other. And that is more dangerous than any kiss or touch. Because emotional intimacy is the foundation of everything. And once your partner starts building that foundation with someone else, especially someone close to you, you start to feel displaced in your own relationship. I began to feel like the third wheel in my own marriage. It made me question everything. Was I boring to him now? Was she funnier, smarter, more open? I started shrinking. I didn't feel like enough. Not compared to someone who had my history and his attention. I started noticing that when I talked to Aaron about something emotional, he'd respond like he already knew. Like someone else had prepped him for the conversation. And I knew that Layla had already talked to him about it. She became my translator, my stand-in, my emotional shadow. It's a strange kind of pain watching the people you love betray you right in front of your face and not even realize it's happening until it's too late. I didn't catch them sneaking around. I didn't find a hotel receipt or a lipstick-stained shirt. I didn't stumble across anything obvious. It wasn't some movie scene where everything is dramatically revealed with tears and yelling. No, it was slow, quiet, a betrayal that hid in plain sight. That's what made it worse. Because they weren't hiding, not really. They were laughing together at dinner tables, sharing long conversations while I washed dishes or ran errands. They sat next to each other at family barbecues, swapping glances and stories like old friends. And because it was family, I didn't question it. Because it was Layla, my cousin, my blood, I trusted her. Because it was Aaron, my husband, the man who swore vows to me, I believed him. And maybe that's the most dangerous thing. When betrayal comes wrapped in trust, you don't see it as betrayal. You see it as love. There were times I'd walk into a room and they'd be mid-conversation, and it would stop suddenly. Like they had to adjust the tone, change the subject, make it lighter. I'd catch a quick shuffle in energy the way people do when they know they're sharing something that doesn't belong to them. That tension, that flicker in the air. It's subtle, but it's real. And once you feel it, you never forget it. But I ignored it. I told myself, you're being insecure. You're overthinking. Because that's what betrayal in plain sight does to you. It makes you question your gut until your gut goes silent. One night, I came home from work early. Aaron was in the kitchen, phone in hand, laughing. I asked him who he was texting. He said work stuff and put it down. But the screen lit up a moment later and I saw her name. Layla. It was a stupid meme, probably, or some inside joke between them. But that's the thing, it wasn't the content. It was the frequency. It was the casual intimacy they had developed. They weren't just talking here and there. They were talking constantly. And I realized I wasn't the first person Aaron shared his thoughts with anymore. There was a moment, I remember it so vividly. Layla came over wearing a sundress. I was in sweats, messy bun, exhausted from a long day. She breezed in, hugged me, and then turned to Aaron with this smile like they had an unspoken language. They laughed about something from a previous conversation I wasn't part of. I stood there, in my own living room, and felt like a guest. I wish I could say I confronted them right away. That I asked questions. But I didn't. I stayed quiet. I made excuses. I told myself they were close because we were all close. I swallowed my discomfort like it was shame, like I was wrong for even feeling it. But the signs kept piling up. I started noticing Aaron checking his phone more often, then quickly putting it away when I came near. Layla started canceling plans with me but somehow still found time to swing by our place when I wasn't home. And then there was the day I walked in on them sitting just a little too close on the couch, legs touching, shoulders relaxed. Not a scandalous position, but a familiar one. Like they had been sitting like that for a while. Like it was normal. It wasn't normal. And the day I finally saw the messages, God, it wasn't even what they said. It was the way they said things to each other. The tone. The emotional code written between the lines. They were talking like two people in a relationship. They were sharing things they didn't share with me. And worst of all, they were comforting each other about me. They were turning me into the outsider of my own life. Aaron told her he felt understood when he was with her. That he could be his real self around her. Layla said he was everything she never expected but always needed. It was like reading a love letter written in real time. And I was just the footnote. They had convinced themselves it wasn't cheating because they hadn't slept together yet. But the betrayal was already done. The trust was gone. The moment they started turning to each other instead of me, the moment they started building that emotional world together, the affair had begun. I didn't lose just one person, I lost two. And that's something nobody really prepares you for. Everyone talks about what it's like to be cheated on by your partner, but no one talks about what it feels like when the other person is your family. When the knife in your back has two sets of fingerprints on it. When I finally got the truth, when the messages were right in front of me and the pieces stopped being puzzle-shaped and just cut like glass, I remember feeling numb. I didn't cry at first. I didn't scream. I just sat there thinking, how do you even begin to mourn a marriage and a lifelong bond at the same time? How do you breathe through that? Aaron sat across from me, his head in his hands, repeating that he was sorry. That it just happened, that it wasn't planned, as if that somehow made it better. As if the accidental destruction of my heart meant it hurt less. And Layla, my cousin, my sister in everything but blood, she looked at me with red eyes and guilt all over her face. I think part of her really believed I'd eventually forgive her. That because we were family, I'd find some way to get past it. But she didn't understand what she took from me. What they both took. They didn't just break trust. They dismantled my history, my sense of home. When the people you love most betray you, it doesn't just make you angry. It makes you question every memory, every conversation, every laugh. I started looking back at holidays, birthdays, even casual Sunday mornings and wondering, was it already happening then? Were they already looking at each other like that when I wasn't paying attention? I felt stupid, embarrassed, like a fool in my own story. I'd invited Layla into my world so freely because I trusted her. And Aaron, well, he was supposed to protect my heart, not hand it to someone else behind my back. You don't get to mourn cleanly when two people you love betray you at the same time. There's no clear enemy. You want to be angry, but the anger has nowhere to land. One minute I wanted to scream at both of them. The next, I just wanted to crawl out of my skin and disappear. People told me I should cut them off. Easy to say, but when someone's been in your life for decades, when you've shared bunk beds, birthdays, and inside jokes, how do you just erase that? And Aaron, he wasn't just my husband. He was my everyday, my plans, my coffee companion, my future, and they both were suddenly gone. I tried to stay civil at first, for my own dignity, but I was unraveling inside. I stopped eating. I'd lie awake for hours, my mind replaying moments over and over, trying to spot the warning signs I missed. I obsessed over questions that would never get real answers. Did he love her more than me? Did she ever feel guilty? Did they laugh about me when I wasn't around? There was a night, maybe a week after I moved out, where I stood in the bathroom looking in the mirror and I didn't recognize the person staring back at me. I wasn't just heartbroken, I was stripped. All the pieces of myself that felt stable, my marriage, my family, my identity, they were gone. And I didn't know who I was without them. The worst part? They didn't even last. Their little bubble of intimacy popped not long after I left. Apparently, once the secret was exposed and the thrill faded, they realized they weren't actually compatible. That what felt intense in the shadows didn't hold up in the light. But by then, the damage was done. My trust wasn't just broken, it was pulverized. Even after their relationship ended, I couldn't rebuild with either of them. I didn't want to. Too much had been said. Too many lines crossed. And forgiveness, at least for me, didn't mean reconciliation. It meant letting go without ever getting back what I lost. Losing Aaron was hard, but losing Layla? That shattered something deeper. She wasn't just part of my support system, she was my support system. The one I always thought would be there. The one who knew all my secrets and then used that knowledge to step into a role that wasn't hers to play. And I've learned sometimes the deepest wounds come not from enemies, but from the people you would have sworn would never hurt you.